The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. As Jesus was leaving Jericho with his disciples and a sizable crowd, Bartimaeus, a blind man, the son of Timaeus, sat by the roadside begging. On hearing that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to cry out and say, "Jesus, son of David, have pity on me." And many rebuked him, telling him to be silent. But he kept calling out all the more, "Son of David, have pity on me." Jesus stopped and said, "Call him." So they called the blind man, saying, "Take courage, get up. Jesus is calling you." He threw aside his cloak and sprang up and came to Jesus. Jesus said to him in reply, "What do you want me to do for you?" The blind man replied to him, "Master, I want to see." Jesus told him, "Go your way, your faith has saved you." Immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus on the way. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Bartimaeus was blind, and blindness was a rather common health issue at that time. It was due to some poor hygiene practices that aren't a problem for us. And they didn't have the support systems that we do today. So the only way to support yourself was to beg. And nobody wants to beg. Now Bartimaeus had a good spot. He was on the road going out of Jericho to Jerusalem. Many pilgrims made Jericho their last stop on their way to Jerusalem. They were excited about being close to Jerusalem and likely generous. And the only way to get their attention for Bartimaeus was to call out. And Bartimaeus called out, he did. He probably had heard stories about this Jesus of Nazareth. He was doing amazing things, and he was passing by. So he yells out. People tell him to be quiet. But he's thinking, this could be a really big score. So he yells out louder. And Jesus stops and calls him over and says, "What do you want me to do for you?" Imagine what must have gone through Bartimaeus' mind in that moment. He could have asked for a lot of money so he wouldn't have to beg. But something told him, maybe those stories he'd heard told him to ask for even more. He asked to see, and he was given that gift. Jesus asked one question in our gospel, but Bartimaeus also answers a second unanswered question. The question Jesus asked is, "What do you want me to do for you?" We heard Jesus ask that same question of James and John in last week's gospel. What do you want me to do for you? They wanted to sit at his right and his left in the kingdom. Bartimaeus wanted to see. The question that's not asked is, what will you do with that gift? Now, there's no condition put on this by Jesus. The gift is freely given. But that question is there. What will you do with that gift? Jesus figured James and John wanted authority over others. So he instructed all his disciples about being servants. Bartimaeus was given the gift of sight. And he was told to go his way. But he chose to follow Jesus on his way, meaning he became a disciple. Bartimaeus is the only person Jesus healed that's named in the gospel. That means he was known in the early church. He was a disciple. Jesus was on his way to Jerusalem, where he would be crucified and then would rise again. The way of Jesus was dying and rising. That's the way Bartimaeus followed. As a beggar, he would lay his cloak out in front of him to catch the coins that people tossed to him. He tossed his cloak aside, we're told. He left it behind. He died to that way, and he rose to the way of Jesus. How would we answer Jesus asking us, "What do you want me to do for you?" This is the Son of God. We could ask anything. There's no condition applied. But the question is there. What will you do with what God gives you? What will you do with God's gifts?